instruments and play the music.
Hey yo, it's your boy, Princess Dank, and you know what this channel has been missing? Music stuff. YouTube viewers, come here, lean in close, I got something to tell you. In the immortal words of Gnarls Barkley.
Not only do we do music of our own, of course we do, but we're also very big fans of music as well, and this is a tune that we all seem to like.
We got a #1 victory royale, yeah, Fortnite, we bout to get down. 10 kills on the board right now, just wiped out Tomato Town.
Today, I am going to bring to you a very magical album. Something that I only recently discovered completely on accident. I don't actually remember exactly how I found this, but I want to present to you the album which has single-handedly reinvigorated my music listening back to the point of when I was like 20 years old. I want to delve into The Foreteller by Chou-Chou Lied. Realistically speaking, I probably found this because I was looking up something about Chou-Chou. If you're familiar with my 3x3 that I did with Joe Schmo relating to my favorite albums of all time, you know that the pseudo soundtrack by Sol Yu under the name Chou-Chou from the film All About Chou-Chou is one of my favorite albums. This band, Chou-Chou Lied, has their SEO on lock, but they are criminally unknown in the English-speaking world as far as I can see so far. According to their bio on Spotify, they are an indie pop, indie electronic rock, house, disco group. And I'm going to be quoting here. Formed in 2016, Chou-Chou Lied is a mixture of cool tones and electronic/disco beats. Their male and female vocals combined create a melancholy narrative surrounding the allegorical description of the so-called him and her. You might read that and think, what in the world does music like that sound like? The Foreteller is not only one of the most cohesive albums that I've heard in a while. I remember years ago when I first discovered the film All About Chou-Chou, I found a post on some forum or some social media site of people asking, what other ether music do you know of? There's a fucking plane flying overhead. It's like 9 p.m. Why are you doing that? That's not even a plane. That's a fucking helicopter. What are you doing? If you're familiar with the character of Chou-Chou herself, she creates music from the ether. People on this post were asking, what other bands fit into this category? People were suggesting things like Radiohead. I would argue that this album, The Foreteller, is the most ethereal, non-ambient album that I have found in quite some time. I do not read Mandarin, so I'm going to be going based off of the English names that the band has assigned to the 11 tracks for the album. The album starts with the shortest track, simply titled Intro. If I had to put a word to it in my uneducated, incapable music reviewing vocabulary so far, it would be moody. This is easily one of the most down-tempo songs on the album. This album as a whole is very subdued. There are these little synth riffs that come up on either side way in the background as both vocalists in unison repeat the same line over and over and over again. The intro smash cuts into the first full song, Awake. In a few words, Awake is groovy, vibey, and super danceable. It doesn't just rely on the two voices being linked together. It also shows the interplay of them, bouncing off one another from time to time, and then joining up once again. That's a theme that you'll see throughout the entire album a lot. Taking components, breaking them down, pulling them apart, rearranging them, and then crescendoing with all of them put together. Awake starts out very down-tempo because it's coming straight from the intro, but it ramps up into a real sad boy rave kind of thing. Also of note is that Awake introduces the sexiest element of The Foreteller, which is the steel drums. As somebody who in high school listened to a shitload of The Knife, I have to say this is the sexiest use of steel drums I have heard in like almost 20 years. We then move on to the title track, The Foreteller, which is how I found the band, I think. The music video for this one, at least. We should have a minor aside here to say, the music videos for all the singles on this album are incredible. I know I am heaping nothing but praise on this band, but I have almost no criticism for this album and the videos that came from it. I have negative criticism. I want more of this. This time we start out really strong with both vocalists tying together and just going to like the top of their range. Then we pull it back, bring back in the steel drums, bring in some snazzy horns. This song, being the title track, I feel is very appropriate because it encapsulates a lot of what's going on in this album. It really shows the range between the quiet and loud parts that Chou-Chou Lied is capable of. There are quiet parts where you expect drops, and instead, the music drops out, and you just get vocals and piano, and then it slowly builds back up. It teases you over and over again. This song edges you, is what I'm saying. This is an edge song. This also further exemplifies the band's virtuosity with layering different tracks and combining them in different ways throughout the course. And that's to say nothing of the crescendo of these gang vocals toward the end, that it gets you. It gets, if it doesn't get you, this band is probably not for you. After the Foreteller, we have Hollow Words, which, when I'm listening to the album all the way through, it's the one that I always think I'm gonna skip. But then a couple seconds and it gets going. Where Awake and the Foreteller are kind of anthems. This is the club anthem of this album. It's very understated, but extremely danceable. You don't just get the steel drums here, but you also get another element that we're going to see again later. You get the marimba. Also, you get these faux horn synths toward the end that are so stinky that they're angelic. Halfway through the album, we have Unfortunately. In my notes, I only put downbeat with bass line that reminds me heavily of the tone for the bass in Mother 3. Which it is. That is what I think of every time that I hear this song, is the tone that they use for the electric bass in the Mother 3 soundtrack consistently. That is not at all a detriment or a call out on this song though. Track 6, Those False Front, is one of the most frenetic songs. Not the most, we'll get there, but it's one of the most frenetic songs on the album, with this arpeggiated piano that I really, really get into. If you haven't noticed by now, this is definitely a vibe album. This is, as of this recording, the least listened to song on this album on Spotify, which I think is really unfortunate. It has these beautiful wailing synths throughout the back half of the track, and that combined with the clean piano is just it's chef's kiss. One of the more popular songs on the album, potentially because it was released as a single prior to the album, and I know that Spotify conglomerates listens. We have Dark. This is gonna sound insane. It sounds like a mashup of Blade Runner and Lord of the Rings. Okay, let me expound on that. The synths that are used sound like they give you the vibe of Blade Runner, but then when the marching drum snare comes in and starts building until it explodes into the most energy that the album has had up to this point, it feels as fantastical and uplifting as something straight out of a fantasy movie. Like the steel drum being used throughout this album, that drumline snare, I think, is really important for noting how stripped back, but also how bizarre some of the instrumentation here is. And on top of that, how well it works together. The penultimate track, Burnt, is built around an almond break and a really deep reverberating bass. So that is the equation to get me to like something. This is easily the highest energy track on the entire album, and it really shows the range of what they're capable of. It starts so quiet and gets so big and expansive, even more than Dark, which came right before it. It also exemplifies how moody their music can be despite its high speed. Everything up to this point has been relatively slow, but here they're just going for it. Don't think that I forgot. The marimba comes back here, and toward the end it gets super distorted as the song rolls on, which is another just cheat code to get me to like it. And then here at the musical climax of the entirety of the album, we have one more fake out. It builds and builds, and you think it's gonna drop, and then you think the song might be over, and then it slows down instead in the last quarter of the track to a ballad type thing where the dance elements completely drop out. And this juxtaposition, this expression, easily makes this track maybe the highlight of the entire album. The final track, Dear You, is truly the slow rave of the album, if that's a thing. This really, really amps up the ethereal atmosphere. A lot of the time up to this point, it's been built off of vibes, off of things combining. The production on this track is so stripped back comparatively. It takes its sweet ass time building up to the emotional climax of the project. You see, energy-wise, the previous track was the climax. Emotionally, this one is. While it takes its sweet time, when this song hits, it fucking hits. The soaring synths that they use on the 2 drops on this song really display how sparse but textured the song is. And it makes you kind of think about the album in its totality and how relatively few different sounds were used, even though the band is composed of 2 vocalists, each of whom play keyboard and one of whom sometimes plays bass, and a drummer who also does drum machine programming. Even though they have access to so many different things, they picked a sound palette for this project and for the most part stuck to it. Different elements obviously are dropped in and out. They pulled it together and made this 45-minute edging gut punch of an album that I stumbled upon one day, I think on YouTube, maybe on Google, didn't know what was coming, and has now recontextualized how I feel about music right now, I guess. I don't know. The project is impressive, both due to how much of the ethereal mood it builds, and because of how many steel drums it incorporates, let's be honest. It is honestly an album full of like texture and passion, and this sends me right back to high school where I was listening to a bunch of Japanese rock music. Even though I didn't speak a word of Japanese, I was listening to things like Sigur Rós, who, you know, for the most part sing in Icelandic. I was listening to things in other languages because I truly held this belief that a good vocalist, you don't have to know what they're saying to know what they're saying. And I still believe that. Discovering this out of absolutely nowhere sent me right back to that. Even though this wasn't from an artist that I had any expectations about, it was an artist that I had never even heard of before. This is the first album that I've been excited about in I don't know how many years. There have been albums that I've enjoyed. There have been albums that I have loved, but I think about the albums that made me really, really excited to listen to music in general, that made me want to explore other genres and other artists and find new stuff. This is the first one that's done that for me in like 5 or 10 years. I felt because I had the ability here to talk about it, it would be a disservice not to, because as small as my platform might be, at least I might get like 5 people to listen to this thing who wouldn't have otherwise. That being said, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble. I give this 10 goose eggs out of a chicken. Please go check it out. It'll be linked below. The music videos will be linked below. It's great. I have plenty of other ideas for this show in particular. I'd be interested in covering more contemporary music, as this album did come out in 2022. I'd be interested in covering even older music that I've never heard before, like doing first listens of stuff that I might have missed when I was younger. I'm also interested in doing full discography rundowns of certain artists, which I have the first one picked out. It's somebody that I listened to a lot in high school, and there's only 2 of their albums that I haven't listened to. So that will maybe be the next one of these videos in January, because I want to do one of these a month. You're going to be seeing a lot of changes around this channel, positive changes in 2024, and that's going to be incorporating more music that is not my music into the channel. This album is what inspired this show, so please, for the love of God, go check it out. All right, thank you. Bye.